This is Allie.
And this is Hallie.
And this is Read It Next.
And we're back with another episode of Read It Next with Hallie and Allie.
And this is going to be our first real episode for you, since the last episode was just a special for Twilight. So now we're going to introduce you to one of our favorite books. This series actually started our want to do the podcast in general. It's called From Blood and Ash from Jennifer L. Armentrout.
I'm really excited to start doing this book.
This is honestly one of the best books I've read in so long. It was so good. It was so entertaining to read. I love the characters. I love the story. The story is very original.
And I feel like this has definitely been one of the most popular series of 2020. I feel like everyone has been reading these books. So we are super excited.
I've seen the cover everywhere, online, on Goodreads, so I'm sure some of you have already seen this book, if not read it.
I think this is the book we've talked about the most in these past couple weeks. We have not stopped thinking about this book since we read them. And I know Allie read it before I did. You read it when it first came out, right?
I read it I don't even think a full week after it came out, because I read it beginning of April and it came out almost the last day of March. I happened upon it on accident because I was just looking for a new book and I saw that she has a new book out, and I used to read her series all the time, so I jumped in.
I read some of her stuff, but it was mostly her new adult romance. I haven't read any of her fantasy stuff, so this is a new one for me. I read it, I think, end of August, because I read it the week before the second book came out.
You read it pretty convenient for you.
Yeah, but that week was a long week.
I had to wait the 5 months, and it was hard. I kept thinking back, and I almost reread it so many times. I did end up rereading it before the second book came out, but
let's get started. So we're going to go through the official synopsis, give you some info on the author if you're not familiar with them, and then go through the plot line a little bit with you guys, and basically tell you what we thought of the book, which I think you can tell just from this beginning, we really love this book.
So the official synopsis, guys, is chosen from birth to usher in a new era, Poppy's life has never been her own. The life of the maiden is solitary, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure. Waiting for the day of her ascension, she would rather be with the guards fighting back the evil that took her family than preparing to be found worthy by the gods. But the choice has never been hers.
So some info on Jennifer L. Armentrout. She's a New York Times and international best-selling author from West Virginia. She has a few awards under her belt, such as the 2013 Reviewer's Choice for her book Wait For You, the 2015 Editor's Choice for Fall With Me, and the 2017 Rita Award for Problem with Forever. So she's definitely an accomplished author. Her work is always amazing. I don't think I've read something from her that I did not like.
No, I've liked every single thing from her. My favorite series in high school was actually the Lux series. If you guys haven't read that series, I highly recommend it. She has other few good series that I've read too, and they really never failed to impress me.
So before we start going into the plot, there are just a few things we want to point out. It is a single point of view. It's from the point of view of Poppy. She's our main character. There are some graphic scenes, both some gory scenes and just some intimate scenes between characters. So I would rate it a PG-17.
Yeah, I would definitely say the rating is more PG-17 or rated R. It's definitely not for younger kids.
Yeah, it does touch on some physical abuse and alludes to sexual abuse as well. So just keep that in mind when going into this book, that there are some things that may make you uncomfortable. But I think overall, it was really good. Some similar books that we found. One is Of Riders and Royals, which we're currently reading, which we're also going to do an episode for. I'm excited to do that episode as well.
I'm super excited.
I know once I got into this book, I want to say it took me a total of 2 days. I know when I first started it, it was late at night, so I think I did fall asleep. But once I did get into the next day, I did stay up until 3 a.m. to finish it, and I sent Allie 7 texts in a row at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was so upset that the second book wasn't out and she had me read this book.
Yeah, I woke up to those texts and I'm sorry, I did not feel bad for you as someone who's waiting 5 months. I've been waiting for that second book for so long. But I know I read that book within like the same day. I sat down with the book and then I just finished it all the way till 4 a.m. and I finished reading it and I was like, I need to tell absolutely everybody I know about this book. And that's what I did.
And I definitely think it's like that for a lot of the books we read. We definitely finish them in like 1 to 2 days, especially if it's a book that we are so into. Like we can't put it down. I will fall asleep with my iPad in bed with me. I know that's probably really bad for my eyes, but...
Oh, same. I'll have my iPad and I'll be reading and then I'll be like, okay, I'm going down, and I'll just slide it under my pillow.
Same. So let's go through the characters. We have Penelope, aka Poppy. I love her name. I think that's such an interesting name.
I hate her name. Well,
I love it.
I love the name Poppy. It's one of my favorite names. I think it's so cute. But Penelope, just, I don't know. There's something about it. Like,
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's because it's so different. I like the name. But Poppy, she's our maiden. I think one of the biggest things in this book is you really don't know what that role entails. You hear the title thrown out from like every character in the book, but you don't really know exactly who or what the maiden is.
Yeah, you see that she's on like a high pedestal. She has all these rules she has to follow, but we don't know the significance of her role. We know that she's essential for everybody else's life in the capital, but besides that, we don't know why. We don't know for what reason, why she was picked. We don't know anything.
So we just know that she's the maiden and she's the queen's favorite, which again that's a very high honor. Why, we don't know. It's just how it is for them. But you can tell that she doesn't just want to be like that damsel locked in a tower.
She definitely fights her role a little bit. Even from the beginning, we see her have her moments where she just kind of rebels against the title from the very first chapter, actually. You know, for someone who's supposed to be always inside her room or with a guard, she sneaks out a lot. She goes with her other friend, Tawny. She knows how to fight. There's so many ways that she rebels against this role without ever even saying that she's rejecting it.
And I think it's important to note that she's still so young. She's what, 19?
She just turned 19.
She's 19 and she's seen in such a high regard. That's a lot of pressure.
She has to be absolutely perfect in the eyes of everybody else.
But she never feels like she gets to really just be Poppy, which is, you can tell, one of the things in the book that she wants more than anything.
Yeah, she just wants to really be able to live, and that's been taken away from her since she was a child.
But I did love seeing her character like take more control of her life as the story went on. So that was really great. And then you have Hawk, who's like your resident Hawkeye character.
I'm absolutely in love with him. He's so cocky. He just has a way about him that you're just like, part of you wants to like push him off like the cliff, and the other part of you kind of just wants to hug him for a bit.
Yeah, like there are definitely some times where it's like, I just want to punch you square in the jaw right now. But then some other times they're like, wow, like you're really funny.
He's super funny. The things that he says, really, you wouldn't expect from him. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I always love that in a character, like when one of them is just like extremely freaking funny, because it keeps the story interesting too. Like it keeps a good banter going between the characters.
Yeah, it's definitely needed with the serious aspects in this novel.
Hawk is Poppy's love interest, but he is also an extreme mystery. You don't really get a ton of backstory on him till like further into the book.
Yeah.
Even the people around him don't know much about him, just that he's a well-regarded guard, great credentials.
Yeah, he was seen like raising through the ranks pretty early on for like such a young guy, so they all think he's really determined and passionate about his job. But like from Poppy's eyes, we see from the beginning that she noticed him not only because he was really obviously hot, but because Poppy has a special talent, and that's to feel people's pain. And so early on, she sees Hawk and just sees that he is just covered in so much mental anguish that he kind of stands out to her.
Then we have Victor, who's Poppy's main guard.
And Victor is Poppy's really only father figure in her life. Her parents were killed when she was younger, and Victor, as an older guard, kind of took over that role as a father figure. And he also did something that nobody else would ever do for her, which was to teach her how to fight. And that was really important to her because, like I said, her parents did die, and she thought maybe if they were able to fight, they would have survived. And so she made it her one goal to fight and learn how to defend herself.
And we have Tawny, who is Poppy's best friend and is also a lady in wait, which is part of their upper class that has the chance to ascend, which is a high honor from their gods in the society.
Yeah, if you're chosen to ascend, then you get to become one of the ascensions, and they kind of are seen as these like beings that are really powerful, and we know that they're immortal, but we really don't know much about them besides that.
This book is covered in mystery, and I usually hate that. Like, I usually don't like when all the facts aren't given to me straight, but it's also what kept this book extremely interesting was the fact that you had to keep reading in order to know what was going to happen or what some of these things meant.
It never really felt like you were deprived of information, but you definitely wanted more.
And the thing with Tawny is she is the only friend that Poppy is allowed to have. They're definitely only friends out of circumstance. When Tawny was brought to court, it was her duty to be Poppy's companion. I do think she is a good friend to Poppy, but I feel like if that role wasn't thrust upon her, then their paths definitely wouldn't have crossed. She's definitely more of like an aloof sort of person. At least I saw her that way.
Yeah, she's definitely more of like a happy-go-lucky kind of character. She is easily excitable. She's really passionate about life in general, which Poppy never really has been because her life has been controlled since the beginning. And so their personalities, you would think, wouldn't mesh well, but with the circumstances pushed upon them, they actually really bond, and Tawny's one of the only characters that Poppy can actually rely on.
And we have the Duke and the Duchess, who are Poppy's caretakers.
So they're ascended and they're blessed by the gods, which was interesting for Poppy to grow up with because one of the only people that she could not feel emotions from, specifically like her pain, was from the Ascended. So from them she gets absolutely nothing, which she always thought was a bit weird, but she figured it just came with the role. So growing up with them, you can tell that they aren't very close. The Duke is always very harsh with her, and the Duchess just she never really filled that mother role that I think she was supposed to. They're very cold towards each other.
It's very obvious that Poppy is nothing more than a responsibility to them. There is no emotional connection. You can tell that there was no effort even being made to make an emotional connection between the three of them. Poppy's just there, she's under their care, she's their charge, that's that.
Yeah, they were only ever there just to protect her, but not to really ever let her thrive or be happy, and so they never really got invested into her life.
So we're going to do a general overview of the plot for a more deep analysis and more just general ideas and thoughts that we have on the plot. That's going to be in our B-side episode. But for now, this is just a little treat, a little taste of the plot.
All right, well, to start, we can go over the setting, which is in Macedonia. That's the kingdom where it takes place. So the whole kingdom is surrounded by a huge wall called the Rise, and that's where they will protect the kingdom if they come into attack. Also, we are told about another kingdom called Atlantia, but that's kind of seen as like a shadowy place. Like, we don't know much about it besides those are kind of like the rejects of society.
When we're introduced to Poppy, first off, you do see that there is a Poppy who's like the maiden that plays into this role that she has, but there's also Poppy, just the 19-year-old girl, and we definitely see that internal struggle in the book. We see the internal struggle progress and get like really hard for her. Like I said before, there is no history on the previous maiden, and nothing written in Macedonia's history at all. Even for Poppy, she has no clue what this role exactly entails.
So Poppy only knows from the previous maiden that there was one maiden. She doesn't know the name of the maiden, and she only knows this because apparently the gods have rejected the previous maiden and We don't know if that maiden died, if she was thrown out, but Poppy lives with this fear hanging over her head that she could end up like this previous maiden and completely be rejected from society.
So the book really follows just like her day-to-day life, which is extremely solitary. She's not allowed to speak to anyone. Others aren't even allowed to see her face. She wears like a very heavy veil that covers her face.
Yeah, it covers all the way to her, I think, chin, to like her mouth and chin. That's the only thing that people have ever seen from the maiden.
And she lives at Castle Tierman under the supervision of the Duke and Duchess, but you can see that even though she is living what you would think to be is a pretty grand life, it is not all flowers and sunshine at all.
No.
It's honestly the complete opposite.
For the life that she should have, you would honestly think it'd be a lot better. That's what people do think, that her life is probably amazing because she's worshipped upon, but she lives under these strict rules that mainly the Duke puts on her, and so every single move she does is watched, and if she messes up, she might get punished.
So there are some circumstances in the book that lead to Poppy getting a new guard, which is Hawk. Again, he's a mystery. No one in the castle knows much about him, but Hawk is really, I honestly want to say Hawk is the only person who sees her as more than just the maiden.
Yeah, he sees her as a person, a girl, someone who actually is living a life and not just a simple figure.
And I think that's really important because she, even though she does live a very solitary life, she does have a small group of people around her, but even those people only see her as her role. They don't see her as a person.
No.
In the story, we're taken up to the rite ceremony, which is a huge deal. It's basically when, I want to say 13-year-olds are brought to court and they are allowed to live in court up until the time of their ascension, or they are given to the temples of the gods to work in servitude to the gods. But before the rite ceremony, weird things start happening in the castle. Everyone's kind of shaken up a bit.
A lot's happening and Poppy doesn't really know what's going on.
And the ceremony is where the plot takes a huge turn. Like, I really don't think anyone could have seen this coming. And it has Poppy not only questioning things internally, but even outwardly, she's questioning more and more about her role.
The ceremony is really the first time that we see her rejection of the role of the maiden. She starts to really question why she's doing this, if it's even worth her doing this. And then once that questioning starts to happen, big things start to happen during the rite.
And after the ceremony, we start to see that Poppy's life is put in danger far more than she would have ever even thought. There are a few things that happen before that, but you can tell that it's at the ceremony where there's a huge threat to Poppy.
Yeah, she's always known that if she was ever caught, people would use her for the advantage of having the maiden. She's a great bargaining point for anybody who takes her, so she knows never to go outside without a guard and all that, but she doesn't really understand how much in danger she's always been in.
It ends up with Poppy having to leave the castle and really just completely reevaluate her life and everything that she's known and everything that she's been told from people around her. And like I said, you do see her grow. You see her completely question their entire society. And you're hit with a lot of surprises in this book.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
There's definitely a lot of plot twists that you just wouldn't really expect, and it really does keep you on your toes.
Yeah, the plot twists were really what made this book extremely special. I'm looking over our show notes, and I know I wrote when I first started this book, I didn't truly enjoy it until about 10 chapters in. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, I re-skimmed it, reread the first few chapters, and I was wrong, which is not something I like to admit very often. But I was wrong. This book, from the beginning, really draws you in. It gives you like that little first taste of mystery where you're like, I need to know what's going on.
From the very first chapter, from the very first scenes that we see of Poppy, it's just like a question of why is she here? What's happening? What's stopping her from going further in this moment? There's just so many things that you start to question from the moment you start to read this book, and you want those answers so bad that you keep turning those pages until you might get something answered.
And I think what really helps is that this plot moves very well. You're never in one place for too long. It doesn't get stale. You're not sort of rehashing the same conflicts. It is swift. Like, you are moved from one scene to the other, and each scene is different, and you're really given a lot of depth within this book.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single scene that's included in this book that you can think, they didn't really need that, or I was kind of bored reading that. No, everything that's put in here is essential. It's all very important, and not only is it important, it's entertaining.
Really, the only thing that bugged me was not knowing the whole history around this maiden role. But the further you get into the book, you do understand why that is kept such a mystery. But other than that, like, this book was amazing.
There isn't much for me to complain about this book at all, because it's so good. Every aspect of it, I just think is amazing. It's really well done.
The writing, the detailing, the dialogue, there's that perfect amount of detailing and dialogue that you don't feel like you're getting too much description and not enough dialogue between the characters, or vice versa. It really is just a very good balance of both.
Overall, I think I would give this book a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for me, like, hands down. There's really no second guessing it.
I don't even know why I would even give it a 4 out of 5. Like, there's nothing to demote this book at all.
No, I think with the few things that we can't really get into without spoiling the book, there's nothing I would want to change. This book really had everything for me. Yeah, that's for sure.
And the ending definitely makes you want to read the next book as soon as possible.
Like I said, that 1 week I had to wait was terrible for me, and it was only a week. So big props to anyone who read this when it first came out, who waited the full 5 months.
Thank you.
It couldn't have been me.
Thank you. Your honor means a lot to me.
It really could not have been me, but this is definitely a read it next book. That's for sure.
That's for sure. And I really hope you guys branch out, and I hope you guys read it. I would love to talk to you about it, because I cannot stop talking about this book.
No, I think we discuss this book at least once a day. Even when we're working on other books for the show, we somehow always come back to this one. Read it next.
So read it next, guys.
That's the end of the show. Make sure to listen to the B-sides if you want to get into more spoilers, more details about the plotline, some conspiracies we have. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed the show.
Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.